Well. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this landmark edition of the world-famous Smokin' and Toastin'. It's show number 174, and we are live all over the place. We're on Facebook Live, of course, and then we're available, as you guys probably already know, on Apple Podcasts and Google Play, and on SoundCloud, as well as on what do you call that video channel? YouTube. That's right.
YouTube.
That's what it's called.
By the way, if you're watching, if you don't get the whole show, you can always go back and look at it on YouTube.
That's right.
Toastin' on YouTube, and don't forget to hit subscribe, the like button, and the little bell lets you know whenever we post stuff up on YouTube.
So, Ian, this is a landmark show for us, and not just because it's show number 174.
174 is a very important number.
Halfway to 200.
Yes.
It's also a show where we've got Ironroot Republic in the studio. That's a big deal.
That's awesome.
And but it's a landmark show for even one more reason, and that is that this will be the final show where the intro and bumper music that we've been using for this whole time will be a part of the show. It's going to be changing, and I'll explain why.
We'll do that, but I will tell you, at 174 episodes, it's okay, I think, if we change it up once in a while, right? Mm-hmm. So I think
that's right.
For 174 times all of these bumpers, I think it's okay. We're due for a change.
Okay, we're due for a change. All right. Well, now, so let me explain. We've been invited to join a podcast network, which I'll talk a little bit more about once that all comes together. But as a part of that, there's some sensitivity there to something that we have done, which I guess you could describe as a bit of a gray area. Since podcasting began, it's always been kind of assumed that you can't use like copyrighted material, music stuff. Oh, you got to turn that down.
Yep, sorry about
that. So it's always been assumed that you could use like pieces of songs for intros and bumpers and stuff, as long as you didn't use more than 30 seconds of it, right? So we've used a few things like that, and you hear a lot of radio shows do that, and it's not a big deal. But you couldn't use like a full song unless you had permission from the owner of the master recording. Well, the record labels that own most like major label stuff aren't going to give that permission because they're worried about people somehow downloading this and now they own the song. I don't know. It's stupid, but it is what it is. So anyway, there is some sensitivity among this podcast network that there's a growing possibility that even the 30-second bumps or less than 30 seconds might not be allowable by some of the copyright holders.
So I think what happens is there are certain publishing houses and record companies who are overly sensitive about that in the first place. But here's one of the things that's happened in the record industry is it's really hard for a musician to make money right now with their music.
Labels are making money like crazy again.
Yeah, the labels will make money off the music and they'll sell it and everything else, but a musician makes like portions of a penny.
And by the way, there's a lot of blame.
$1.
There's a lot of fingers of blame pointed by people like that idiot at the Grammys, who are pointing at like the streaming services and stuff as being the reason that artists are not getting paid. And I'm not to sidebar here, but that's wrong. The reason artists are not getting paid is because they've signed deals with the labels that allow the labels to go around the licensing agencies and license directly with a Spotify or whatever. And when they do that, the labels they'll give Spotify or Pandora or whoever, they'll give them a break on the price, which is good for Pandora or Spotify, but also included in those contracts, the labels can keep a great deal more of that money than they keep when it goes through the federal licensing agencies.
Labels aren't in the industry to spread your music. They're in the industry to make money.
Yeah. And
now, so what happens when you look at what's happening with a musician trying to make money on their music is they end up having to do, like, they make their money on the live shows and merchandise and stuff like that. So if you go see a live musician, buy merchandise because that's directly to the to the musician.
If you're a fan, buy stuff at the show, go on their website and buy stuff. That's how they actually get paid for what they do.
Yes,
unless they've got a massive hit.
And seriously, if you buy their tune on Apple, which you should, or whatever thing, you buy it and put it on your phone or listen to it, that musician is getting portions of a penny.
Mm-hmm.
Like hundreds of a penny. They're not getting 20% of that dollar. They're getting 20% of 1 cent.
1 cent, exactly.
And that doesn't add up to much. So I kind of get that, and I also think that because the record companies tend to bulldog on this, because if we use their music and they catch wind of it and we have a successful show, they're not going to care as long as nobody's successful, okay?
Right.
They're not going to care. No one's going to pay any attention really to it. But if someone's successful and all of a sudden, oh, well, you're using that music to make money.
Right.
Well, actually, we're using a bumper music because it's cool. We're not using that. You guys don't, sign in to listen to our bumper music.
Exactly.
And we're using such a small portion of it anyway.
But
at the same time, I think this gives us an opportunity to go, you know what? Let's find musicians who want their music to be heard, and maybe we can find some local guys and go, hey, can we have permission to use your music?
And now that the show is world famous,
yes,
the spotlight is a little brighter. Hi, Mom.
That's right.
Yeah. So our intro song, the artist that performs on that is a friend of yours and a friend of mine,
John Egan.
John
He's
Egan.
So good.
He's so great, and they did that for us, and just that's ours to use as much as we want. So the intro won't change, but it's the bumper music, and let's face it, Radio Clash, that's owned by somebody, and so that'll have to change. So what I'm thinking is, I'm not so concerned about the bumpers in and out of the segments, but matching something up with the well might be a little more of a challenge.
Yeah, we're gonna have to find something that really sets the mood of the.
So so we'll be trying some different things across the next few weeks, and we'll just see how they go. People can comment if they want on anything they like or don't like. And by the way, if you're in a band and you own your music, as most independent artists do, you're welcome to send it to us. You can send it to me. My email is cruze, C-R-U-Z-E, at rfcmedia.com. Send me, attach an MP3 or WAV file to the email and send it to me. We'll try yours out as well. That'll be fun.
Absolutely, yeah. Submit it.
All right. So this is a landmark show because it's the last time the well will be done over one of the greatest songs of all time, Radio Clash by The Clash. But so I'm a little sad, but I'm excited for the future. So speaking of things I'm excited about, Robert Licorice is here. He's the founder and distiller for Ironroot Republic Spirits. We met Robert, at like a Whiskeys of the World, like we were just talking about.
I think we were talking 2017 Whiskeys of the World. Yeah,
so. But we haven't managed to get him on the show until today, so we're very excited because we're kind of fans of the product. So I have a feeling.
And he's got some big news that just came out as well.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a few moments, but it's very, very exciting. So I do want to mention that we're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant at 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth, BB Italia on Memorial in Houston, and BB Lemon on Washington Ave, and the Annie Cafe and Bar on Post Oak Boulevard in Houston. All wonderful establishments, very well stocked and well curated bars, and bacon.
Yeah.
Bacon.
Have you eaten there?
I'm not. That's actually where I'm heading after this.
Though, so bacon.
Get the bacon.
Get the bacon.
Chef
That'll be
Tommy's
good.
bacon is so amazing.
So on today's show, we'll be trying some really. My mouth is actually watering looking at some of these bottles here. We'll be trying some what I'm expecting to be really excellent Ironroot Republic spirits. We will also be checking out a few interesting beers. To start with today, we're going to be trying Side Project Brewing's A La Table. It's an oak-aged Missouri farmhouse ale.
You got me.
From Side Project Brewing in Maplewood, Missouri. I got you?
You got me so far. That sounds great.
All right. And then we'll try the KCBC, Kings County Brewers Collective out of Brooklyn, New York, has a Robot Fish Citra Smash IPA.
There you go.
That we'll be trying. And then Legal Remedy Brewing Company's Standard of Proof. That sounds like a legal term.
That does.
It's an Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels. These guys out of Rock Hill, South Carolina. Yeah. So a lot to look forward to. Plus, the president's new budget, which has been put on the table, would make a major change in how cigars and other tobacco is regulated. And so we'll tell you about that. The budget certainly has not passed yet. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we'll tell you about that as well. Plus, you're familiar, Ian, we're talking a lot of music on the show, but you're familiar with the band Stryper?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Christian hard rock and roll band.
Used to jump around on stage looking like bumblebees?
Yes, they had the bumblebee tights on. Remember that?
They're actually a really great band, by the way.
They actually can play. Michael Sweet is the leader of the band. Is like actually a very, very talented guy. But he's drawn some criticism for a post of him smoking a cigar. So we'll tell you that story. Yeah, well,
I don't remember in the Bible where it says you can't smoke a cigar.
well, apparently there's some verses I'm not all that well, all that far up on, but no, he joins the interesting company of Nick Jonas. Nick Jonas and Michael Sweet from Stryper are now the two latest musical celebrities to draw criticism for appearing.
Are they afraid that Michael Sweet's going to influence the kids?
The
I highly
Christian
doubt
kids.
anybody under 30
knows who Stryper is.
is watching Stryper right now. They're my favorite band.
Yeah, maybe not.
The kids are all about it.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot to look forward to on the show. There's some other great stuff that we'll be able to talk about as well. But Ian, we did not do a show last week. You and I were both out of town, so we took the week off.
Yep.
But we did post a great video, which I want to thank Adam, a producer, for editing together, of the segments that we did at the Houston Whiskey Social, which remains, by the way, the greatest whiskey and spirits event that we've ever been to.
I mean, I had fun.
Yeah, you did have fun. I was watching you. You were having
I had a good time there.
Yeah, I think we all had a pretty good time. And Robert, you were there at the Houston Whiskey Social.
Oh yeah, I had a great time this year. I got to wander around and taste things.
Yeah.
Normally I'm behind the
You're behind the
table
booth.
pushing. But
Okay,
this year.
so I want to ask you this question about Ironroot Republic, because you are the founder.
One of,
and you're the distiller, right?
Mhm.
So Mary, who does the bookings for the show, who also is my wife, she mentioned to me that during a part of the, confirming your appearance here, or did the date work or whatever, you mentioned that you would have to check with your mom and brother.
Oh yeah.
So how does that work exactly? This is a real family affair, Ironroot, isn't it?
Yeah, we're a small family company. I'd say it's a triumvirate that leads the company. It's
Okay.
my brother, my mother, myself. So
I think that's really cool. Actually.
I've met your mother a couple times at the events, and she is absolutely delightful.
she's the real leader. Let's be real honest.
Yeah,
she's the
well.
one. She's the one who takes
Enthusiastic
charge.
and very proud.
Oh,
Moms
gosh, yeah.
usually
Yes.
are, and that's right. Moms have the ability. You can do something amazing, and your mom is more proud of it than you are. That's the way. It's a mom thing. It's a mom thing.
She'll also be the most critical out of anybody too.
Yes.
At the same
well,
time.
there's that.
but
That's
only
also a mom thing.
only behind closed doors.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's exactly right. Well, I always appreciated that about Sierra Nevada Brewing. If you look on their cans or on their boxes, it says we're still this beer is like family owned, created, and argued over regularly, or something like that. And I thought, it's so perfect.
Right.
You totally understand what's going on. So we're excited to get to the tasting. We'll do that momentarily. Ian, we've had a couple of weeks now since we've actually done a show. I'm assuming you had time at some point in there to smoke something interesting. Is that the case?
I picked up a classic. We overlook the classics sometimes, so
Yes.
we've talked about it on here, trying to go back to some of the classics, some of those spirits or beers or cigars that got us into enjoying it in the first place.
Which, by the way, I'll just cut in and mention because I was in Vegas, I took my wife there for Valentine's Day, and wound up drinking a lot of Sam Adams, because it was in the casinos is one of the best choices out of what they will bring to you if you're at a table playing, and just Sam Adams is wonderful.
There's
it's
nothing wrong with
really,
it.
really good.
Absolutely
So I was
nothing wrong with
reminded again of that.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry.
So I went Arturo Fuente, and I had their Anejo.
It's so hard to go wrong.
Yeah, it's super hard to go wrong with the Fuente in the first place because they're great cigars. The Anejo is the age. The size I had was the 888, which is basically their Lancero, and I hadn't had that size from Fuente before.
Yeah, because you normally go with the larger ring
I
gauge,
usually
right?
go with the larger ring gauge and something a little bigger, which I probably would enjoy. But this was truly enjoyable. From the top, the cigar is dark brown, semi-firm overall, nice and smooth. It's a really pretty cigar. It's got this great cedar sleeve that it's stored in. So obviously, the initial the pre-light sniff on this has a lot of cedar, a lot of woody elements, a lot of earthy elements, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of like dark mocha kind of flavors going on. I used a clip on it because I had a torpedo end. The pre-light draw on this was perfect right off the bat, and had a lot of the dark chocolate and mocha kind of flavors going on, with a little bit of woody and earthy notes again going on right off the bat. The initial light on this was a bit of leather and pepper, which is interesting because I didn't get any leather on the nose on this whatsoever. And then cedar just kind of blossomed all the way through this.
Nice.
The initial light kind of morphed into a really cedary with a dry finish, with some chocolate notes all the way through, and a large bunch of coffee flavors going on.
So does the fact that it's wrapped in a cedar tube, does that actually enhance the cedar, or is that?
Yeah, no, it
yeah.
definitely picks up cedar because it's it's
It's
sitting there
sitting
in
there
cedar for
being-
the life of the
being
cigar up to the point I
humidified,
take
yeah.
it off, right?
Right.
And so that definitely adds cedar flavor to the wrapper because it's full contact of the wrapper, and I believe that's part of what they're adding to the flavor of the cigar. When they do that. And I've seen the same cigar, in the same line in different sizes that don't have cedar, and some do. So it might be that, like, for this particular size, we want to add this touch of flavor to it. And I don't know if that's a chef's choice or what it is, but it certainly was awesome on this cigar. The first third of this cigar morphed into coffee and chocolate and earth and cedar, and that cedar finish was so nice because, like I said, the cedar wasn't as present in the initial puff of the cigar, but then after the aftertaste of the puff was very cedar finish, which was really nice. The burn on this thing was absolutely perfect. Razor line burn all the way down. The ash was a little bit flaky, so I was careful tipping it because I always spill ash on myself, when I try to get the really long ash. The second third of this cigar was more of the same with a little bit of fruity note in the background that kind of crept up just as an interesting tanginess going on. Not a lot else changed with it. Again, razor line burn on this. Perfect draw all the way through. Perfect ash, everything going on. The last third of this cigar, it started to load up a little bit with some of the darker flavors like the pepper and the earth, and a little bit of the leather came back, which I hadn't detected except for the initial light. A little bit of the leather came back with some strong earthiness, and the coffee and chocolate moved a little further back. So it was interesting because the last third of this cigar was vastly different from the first 2/3 of it, but a little bit closer to the initial light of the cigar. The cedar notes, the cedar finish lasted the entire cigar. It was absolutely fantastic. I didn't have anything influencing my palate on this. I was drinking water with it, so unless I didn't have any flavor in the water or anything,
Yeah, right.
This cigar costs $10. I smoked it down till it was just about burning my fingers. Like in that last picture, I'm sure you saw that. Like it's a little bit bigger than my thumb at that point. This cigar costs $10. I'm giving it a 7. It punches so far above. Like, you expect a
Above
Fuente
its
to
weight
be
class,
good,
yeah,
right?
right.
I also expected it to be more expensive than that. And
Than $10, yeah.
if you'd have given me that cigar without the price tag, I would have guessed it at $15.
Nice.
Easily.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I probably wouldn't have been
unhappy about that.
That's
Yeah.
fine. It's worth
Yeah.
that. But it was $10. I mean, that's fantastic for a cigar of that quality. So
Love it.
you get a solid 7 on that cigar. If you're out and about, don't be if you're into more mild cigars, don't be afraid to try this one. It's definitely medium, but it's not a spicy, like, burn your tongue kind of pepper. It's a real mild pepper. It's pepper flavor without being too spicy. And it has all these other flavors in there that you don't always get in a much more mild cigar. So I would say definitely try one of these, maybe in the smaller sizes, and see how that fares.
Wanted to mention just before I jump into telling you about my cigar that we teased that you had some news, Robert, from Ironroot, that you had some news to pass along. We didn't actually announce the news, but one of our listeners has already announced it on the comments, and then Chris Hart jumped in and said, "Wait, I missed it. We will announce it in just a moment. I promise. We'll get to that before we go to break." I will tell you, Ian, that I had a very interesting cigar, and I had a lot of cigars when I was in Vegas, some of which I remember better than others. But I decided I probably shouldn't review one of those because the extenuating circumstances. So today, actually before the show, Ian and I met over at Casa de Monte Cristo, enjoyed some great conversation, and I smoked the Oscar Valadares Wild Hunter Maduro.
That's what I actually reviewed 2 weeks ago on the show.
Correct. Yes, and I remember it. So I thought, I'll give this a shot. So apparently, this cigar is blended to be perfect for when you go hunting. That's what it's supposed to be about. And I am not a hunter, but that doesn't mean that I can't join you guys who are for a cigar, as long as I remain really quiet in the blind. Right. So here we go. Cigar was a little bit rustic looking, which I thought was perfect for something designed to be, kind of outdoorsy, right? Uh-huh. The wrapper, binder, and filler on the smoke are all Honduran. The pre-light on this was creamy, and it wasn't as strong as what I was expecting from a Honduran tobacco cigar. I used a straight cut, I lit it up, and then here came the pepper and the spice, and almost immediately, too, like first couple of puffs. There was also a very nice undertone of a sort of a rich soil and an earthiness and a hint of woodiness, maybe like a pine or a cedar wood is what I was getting out of this. I found myself actually really pleasantly surprised, even though I remembered your review. I was still pleasantly surprised by the complexity of the Wild Hunter. I guess for a rugged outdoors type smoke, I was maybe thinking it would be a bit more straightforward, and not
Tastes
quite
like
as
hay.
complex. Well, maybe not, but I'm thinking something more like a diesel or something like that. That would be, it's not super complex. It's got a great single note, and that's sort of what I was expecting. But this was very nice and complex, medium-bodied in intensity. As far as the burn, it was great, nice and straight, no need for relights. And I will say the ash was a bit flaky. It fell off in the ashtray, as you may have already seen in the photo, about a half an inch in. But that makes sense too, as you're not likely to be holding a longest ash contest while you're crouching in a deer blind. So I will say that later on in the smoke, I did get some ash on my shirt, so I feel a kinship and a connection with
That
you.
happens all the time.
Overall, the cigar surpassed my expectations. Oscar Valadares, I think, is really on a roll right now. The stuff they're coming out with has been fantastic. This is a $9 to $10 cigar, maybe just a touch overpriced, but still, I'm still going to give it a solid 5 based on how much I enjoyed it. So when are we going hunting?
Good question.
All right, before we get into our break, and then we'll come back and start the sampling. We mentioned that there was, a bit of news, and Robert Licorice from Ironroot Republic is here. This just happened, right?
Just this last week.
This just in.
So you're hearing it first from Smoking and Toasting, or from one of the people on our comments section.
I did put up spoiler alert.
Yeah. But what happened this week?
So this last week, we got my mother and brother were invited to go to New York for the World Whiskey Awards. It's a award ceremony that's put on by Whiskey Magazine every year. Mm-hmm. And at it, in the past we've won for the Hubris Corn Whiskey. It's been recognized a number of years now. So we assumed that's what was happening again this year. But it was something completely different. This year, Harbinger, the 115 proof.
Is that this one right here?
That's that one right
Ian,
there.
maybe show that to the camera.
Yeah.
That guy was named by them as the best bourbon in the world. I guess country is more appropriate.
Wow.
But best bourbon in the world this year.
That's huge, though.
It was huge. It blew us away, honestly, not expected at all.
That's awesome.
I mean, last year it was Four Roses 130th anniversary edition.
Right.
You had 1792 Full Proofs one, Pappy Van Winkle, obviously, and then some Bowman. But we're the first grain-to-glass craft distillery or smaller distillery to win with something that was 100% our own distillate.
Boy, I just want to say, if you don't think Texas whiskey is coming on.
It's coming.
It's coming, man. And this is really exciting. And congratulations. We'll get to tasting that as well as some of the other spirits that you brought with you here. Starting up in our next segment. Plus, we'll be trying some of this a la table oak-aged Missouri Farmhouse Ale in our next segment. You were checking out Smoking and Toasting, show number 174.
174.
Halfway to 200. We'll be right back. Alice in Chains, we will miss you. Welcome back at Smoking and Toasting.
I'll miss that amazing drum sound.
Is that one of the best
best drum sounds?
So quick aside, I was having this conversation with my wife last night. I think my favorite. I love drums, and I love great drummers, and obviously everybody's still like shaken over losing Neil Peart from Rush recently. But I was telling my wife, as great as he is, I think my favorite rock drummer was John Bonham, because his drum sound was, I thought, unparalleled.
Yep.
Go back and listen to. It's not the most popular Led Zeppelin album, but go back and listen to In Through the Outdoor. And listen to the drum sound on that record. Wow. To anybody who pays attention to those things, it's sort of mind-blowing. But you're right. That's great drum sound at the beginning of that.
So good.
Allison Change is so good. So I'll miss that. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 174. We are brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth.
Just a quick aside. I think that John Bonham's drum sound was recorded in a room with 4 mics.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Because now, I bet that Allison Chains was 30.
Oh, yeah.
Seriously.
I'm pretty sure that his general sound was 4 mics.
That's why he was a genius.
Wow.
He was a genius. He also was probably better at trashing a hotel room than any rock star ever of all time. You gotta give him credit for that. You gotta give him credit for that. Robert Licorice is our guest. He's the founder and distiller for Ironroot Republic Spirits. We'll begin some Ironroot tasting here in a moment. But Ian, while you open up our a la table, I thought I would share this with you. It's very interesting. Oh, nice. I like that. There's a new federal budget on the table that has been proposed, a $4.8 trillion budget proposal for the 2021 fiscal year, which begins in October. Why is this being discussed on Smoking and Toasting? Because it calls for a new agency to focus on tobacco regulation. So if this budget is passed as is, or if it's passed with this particular portion intact, the FDA would no longer be responsible for regulating cigars, cigarettes, vaping, anything chewing tobacco, anything tobacco related would not be regulated by the FDA anymore. It would be regulated by this new agency, which would be within the HHS to be responsible for tobacco regulation. It's been under the auspice of the FDA since 2009. And this would be a new agency led by a Senate-confirmed director in order to increase direct accountability, they're saying, and more effectively respond to this critical area of public health concern.
We're going to create a new bureaucracy that will, in very short order, start seeking ways to justify their own
existence. See, this is what frightens me. Yeah,
that's the terrifying part.
Hopefully, as fans of cigars, hopefully they'll focus things on where they really need to be focused, because there, as we pointed out so many times on the show, there is no youth cigar smoking epidemic. It doesn't exist.
Now, you don't remember when I went into that cigar shop and this kid was standing outside going, "Hey, can you buy me a premium handmade cigar?" And I was like, "Damn, dude, you need to stop smoking cigars because you sound like an old man."
Yeah.
And I brought him out a punch, and he goes,
16.
"I wanted a Fuente, damn it," and he threw it on the ground.
Yeah, I remember that. No,
I was
actually,
like, what are you, like 16
I don't
years
remember
old?
that.
No, this never happens.
Exactly.
It never, ever happens.
It never, ever happens. Or like the group of kids going around going, "It's Friday night, what are we going to do?" "Oh, I got a buddy who's 21. He'll go and get us some cigars."
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. I'm telling you. What's he going to get? "Oh, get us a box of Padron and a Fosarios." Okay, good. No, that doesn't happen. They're going after PBR.
Everyone's got to pitch in $20. Well, we have 10.
Yeah.
Well, then you don't get the Padron.
You don't get a cigar, dude. That's right. So anyway, that's the news. We'll keep you posted. By the way, the budget itself has a long way to go to be approved. So just because this is proposed doesn't mean it will ever happen. But we'll keep you posted. That's what we do. Ian, what can you tell us by looking at the bottle? I know it's a bit hard to read because of that.
It looks like a champagne bottle.
It does. It looks very much like a champagne bottle, and it's large enough I had to put it on a different shelf in my fridge than the usual
side project
beers.
A la table. I assume you have to say it that way because it's a la.
I don't know. They're from Missouri. I think they probably say a la table.
If it said it'd be of the table, but it's a la table.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Oak-aged Missouri Farmhouse ale. And, I haven't tried it yet, but it smells funky.
Yeah, well.
Like funky in a good way, but
generally
funky.
speaking, these farmhouse ales are going to have some funk. So, and this was oak-aged as well. So
what else does it say? Brewed,
it's very
blend and
funky.
bottled by Side Project Brewing, St. Louis, Missouri, and then alcohol by... 2.5%.
Does this qualify as non-alcoholic beer? Like
it's near beer.
Yeah,
Almost.
near beer. That's right.
It's near
That's
beer.
Right. That's right. It's near beer.
This would have passed prohibition.
That's right. that's pretty crazy. So I have taken.
A la Table is inspired by the classic saisons of the past, meant to be shared at the table with family and friends, traditionally brewed to be low in alcohol and extremely refreshing. So this is a point. This is very sessionable. Like a table wine is,
Right.
Very sessionable
That's
kind
right.
of table beer is what they're going for, I think, on there.
And I think Side Project actually kind of specializes in these farmhouse ales and
smells
these
really good.
these very, the reason they call them farmhouse ales is like you serve them with a meal. Everybody, nobody's getting too hammered by the end of the spaghetti, that type of thing.
This inspired saison was brewed with an airy and fluffy malt build. I don't know how you get a fluffy malt bill, but okay.
I don't know. But there is some fluffiness to this beer.
And fermented with wild Missouri yeast and bacteria in our house saison blend before being aged in Missouri oak for several months and then being naturally conditioned in this bottle. I want to point out, and there's more to read on here, but I'll get to it in a minute. I just took a sip of this, and everything they say on there is incredibly true. This is crisp and refreshing, and I immediately love this beer.
Yeah, it is tart and wonderful.
It
Digging
tastes,
it. Oh,
yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, it tastes. It's almost like a wine because of that oaky finish on it, and it's real bright and fruity. It's like a lot like some white wines that I've had, and it has that fruity aftertaste finish that just kind of lingers and makes you want cheese.
There's something that a lot of saisons have in their dankness, if you will, that is a little off-putting to me. This either doesn't have that, or the fruitiness kind of conquers
I think you're using the wrong word. I think dank happens usually in IPAs and double IPAs and big
You're
stuff.
right. You're right.
I think the word you're looking for is funk.
It's
And
funk,
Funk is it definitely, like when I open it, there's a funk to it.
Well, I like the
and
funk.
it's a good kind of funk,
Well,
but it's a weird kind of funk.
I like the funk, but sometimes if that's the thing that stays with you at the end of the finish, it can make it like, yeah, this is interesting to taste, but I don't know if I want to
Here's
buy
an even
another
better way to put the funk. It's
This
an
doesn't have it.
over-ripeness. Mm-hmm. And there's a little, like, overripe banana going on in this. Like, almost like that banana is a little bit, like, it's time, it might even be past banana bread time.
one. Okay, gotcha. One
But
day
it's-
past banana bread.
Right, it's really good, though. Like,
That
I
would be
love
a
the
great
way it
name for a
finishes.
beer. One day past banana bread.
I know,
Right?
you can tell the wild yeast is not like overtaking it, or at least the wild yeast that they have is a little bit more closer to more of a traditional yeast, just because that funk isn't overtaking it,
Right,
which
right.
is why I'm really digging it.
And I guess that's what I was trying to say, but not saying nearly as well as you just did, which is I like the funk. There's sometimes when I taste a saison that I'll say, yeah, it's interesting, but the funk does kind of overtake it to the point where I don't enjoy it as much. I don't go, give me another one of those. In this case, I'm going to be like, can I have some more?
I want a case of this for Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
Like, this would be like some people can have wine. Because this is kind of like a sparkling wine almost. It's so good.
Yes.
It's definitely beer, but it has that mouthfeel of like a sparkling, dry, fruity wine. It's really, really interesting. Man, good job, guys.
As a
Wow.
distiller, do you? I don't know if you would know the answer to this or not, but is this? I wonder if this style of beer is a more difficult one to brew. Something that really works and is balanced than maybe some other styles. You don't see as many farmhouse ales, you know?
Anytime you're messing with wild yeast, that's always very difficult, especially for brewers, because their yeast, if they get overtaken, they can get overtaken by wild yeast, and then it's very, very difficult to get rid of that and to go back to something more traditional.
Right.
So I think for me, wild yeast is always a difficult thing. They can be very funky and very temperamental because they are wild yeast.
Well, in this case, they found it. Like
they
they
nailed it,
found
yes.
the balance in this, and this is maybe one of my favorite farmhouse ales I've ever had.
It says, what began as a dream and a side project has now grown into our 100% barrel-aged brewery. Passion, experimentation, and patience drive the creation of our rustic saisons, wild ales, and spirit barrel-aged ales. As we share our craft with you, we hope you enjoy it with your friends as well. Visit us at sideprojectbrewing.com.
So everything they do is barrel aged then.
So yeah, and an interesting note, one of my brew club members posted on the comments that they had it as a pass around at the meeting a couple weeks ago, and everyone thought it was fantastic.
It really is good. In fact,
this is
I
outstanding.
was just going to mention, if you're someone who's been a little bit shy of saisons or farmhouse ales or sour ales, not that this is really that sour, but this is a great one to go to, because this is maybe a little more accessible than some of them.
It's so refreshing when you're drinking
It really is.
I mean, especially if, like being a distiller, you're drinking a lot of heavier, really rich stuff, or if you're drinking a lot of stouts and whatnot. Typically, this is something that just cuts through and is a really nice break.
And at
from
2.5, I'm surprised that we're all enjoying it as much as we are.
Well, it's like you said, you're so used to like the big heavy flavor. Even with a saison, like saison can have that big funk and it can have a lot of different things going on, but this right here, I'm amazed that they get this much flavor going on, and the mouth feels awesome, and it's super refreshing. The finishes, like they nailed this. This might be
my favorite
style, one of my favorite things ever.
My favorite in this style I've ever had, easily. And we've had a couple of really good ones on the show here. So it's not a style that I buy a lot, but I will definitely look for more of this one whenever I can. From Missouri, Maplewood, Missouri, and Side Project Brewing. Well, Robert Licorice is here. He's the founder and distiller for Ironroot Republic Spirits. Robert, you do whiskeys. You also do other spirits at Ironroot as well, don't you?
We do. We have a few spirits that we have just at the distillery, but the other thing, other than the whiskeys that we do a little bit more of, is grape brandy. And then, again, we'll get more into that later, but my brother and I come from more of a cognac and French distilling background.
Interesting.
And so we have a lot of those things impact how we make our spirits. So for us, we had to make some grape brandy, and it's been an adventure finding the right grapes and getting to pull them off the vineyards at the right times and everything like that. But it's been that's definitely a passion project, and that's going to be coming up here in the next couple of years. We've got some 5-year-old brandies at the distillery right now, so we're going to start looking to release probably 7 to 10-year-old, somewhere around there.
Wow.
It's amazing how far forward you have to look when you start a project. They're like, I think I want to make brandy, and it'll be ready in 5 or 7 or 10 years.
Right? I know. I have to admit,
instant gratification there.
I'm a little too impatient for that. I really am. Like I'm thrilled when somebody says, "Oh, try this. It's the 21 year." I'm like, "Oh, great!" And I don't even stop to think that whoever made this started 21 years ago.
Right.
It's like, wow, that they have greater patience than me, for sure. But is there a obviously not like the market for whiskey, but is there a market for brandies? Is that something that's growing as well?
It's definitely growing. I think barrel-aged spirits in general have been growing, but as the American whiskey boom has really just risen in the last decade, but really 6 years even, that it's really just taken off. As some of the the better American whiskeys are getting harder to find, people are starting to turn to stuff like rum and brandy and cognac, and you're hearing Armagnac a lot more, which is one of my favorite things in the world.
I told Chris Hart that we need to...
He's an Armagnac fan.
We need to do a project, like a whole event, and call it Armagnacathon.
I love that. That's just so good. That's just so good. Chris probably said, it's not a very good idea.
I sent it out
and
as a
then
text.
started working on it.
I sent it out as a text, and then my next text says, "That's funnier if you say it out loud."
They haven't really felt it yet, the Armagnac region, because they're quite a bit different in how they even approach spirits than the cognac region, because their primary thing is winemaking. And they make Armagnac basically kind of as a side thing. It's their insurance that they do every year. So if they have a year where the wine doesn't make, then they'll sell off barrels of Armagnac. Or if their kid's getting married, they'll sell off a barrel of Armagnac to pay for the wedding. So they're not a whole lot of like people who are brands that are just making Armagnac. They're primarily winemakers.
When did you guys start Ironroot Republic?
We started 2014, August of 2014 is when we started distilling.
So pretty early as it relates to this, particularly to the Texas whiskey and spirit boom.
We're babies. I'd say in the Texas whiskey in general is a baby industry. We're in the toddler phase right now, but I'd say we're we're more of the second kind of generation of distilleries coming in. At the beginning, you had Balcones and Garrison and those guys, and then we're probably that second generation that started coming in, and now you're into the third one, I would say. But
yeah, because there's so many brand new ones, like really that have started within the last year to 2 years.
I'm so proud of Texas. There's so many great ones.
Well, that's what's really good, and I'll say this: it has gotten a lot better. But for years, if you wanted to drink Texas wine, you were doing so because of state pride.
Yes.
You weren't you weren't drinking it because it was the best, you were necessarily finding really, really great wine. That's begun to change, but it's taken some time. That didn't happen with Texas whiskey. I mean, there were really great Texas whiskeys from almost the get-go of this recent, bloom in Texas whiskey. And now it's like, man, there's so many great ones, and including one that just won, I don't know, best whiskey in the world. Hello, that's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge. So, yes, absolutely, it deserves. If anything deserves a tinny electronic clap, that would be it. That would
I deserve
absolutely
more than
be
that,
it.
but I only have so many hands, and one of them was on the machine.
Robert, what should we start with tasting wise here today?
I've got 5 whiskeys worth to go through today, so I figured we'd
Challenge accepted.
start with the lowest, the easiest kind of the easy drinker, and then we'll move up to the crazier stuff after that.
That's great.
So
That's
we're
great.
I like that your easy drinker is already overproof.
Yeah. And I just like the phrase easy drinker because people have called me that.
For anybody out there who doesn't know what overproof means, most whiskeys are bottled at 40% or 40 proof, which is 80% alcohol by volume.
Which is
and
slightly,
overproof is anything over 40%.
which is slightly higher than the Farmhouse ale we just had.
at
Which was 2.5. Yes,
yes.
absolutely. All right. Well, this. And this is. Tell me which one again, and let's put this bottle on Mr. Twirligig there.
All right, we're usurping
Yep.
Saison here.
Harbinger XC is the name of this one. So this is XC is Roman numerals for 90 proof. So on the Harbinger line of bourbons we do, this is the 90 proof version of it. So kind of what we specialize in is 2 kind of things I'd say kind of set us apart. One was that kind of French tradition that we came from with Hubert Germain Robin, who started a distillery out in California after being a master cognac distiller and cognac for a number of years, and his apprentice Nancy Fraley. And so we have the French side that really got taught into us, and I'll dig into that as we go on. But also we use a lot of heirloom corn. So where a lot of bourbons are that flavoring grain, the thing that really makes those bourbons stand out is either the wheat or that rye characteristic. We decided to go a little bit different direction and just really focus on the corn side of what was going on. So we use a lot of Bloody Butcher corn, purple corn, Floriani corn are going to be part of we have 4 core mash bills. So we have those 3 and then a low rye. Harbinger is going to have a lot more of the purple corn and Bloody Butcher corn in it. So you get a lot of fruit, a lot of sweetness. It's going to bring out a lot of caramel.
And it's definitely corn forward. You can totally tell that the corn is the primary thing in the mash bill. Yeah,
no doubt.
But it's a really, and a lot of people, if you're not used to this in whiskey, you may think, well, why would you want corn? But it totally
this hits your palate
totally works. Yeah.
So you can right off the nose, you get that corn sweetness in the smell, but you also get this really mineral earthiness that happens. And what's funny is I put my nose in the glass and smell it, and then I took my first sip, and the initial taste of this is exactly the nose. Like it hits hits your palate exactly like the nose, and then it finishes with like caramel chocolate, like a Rolo.
Caramel chocolate cinnamon almost, yeah.
Absolutely crazy, the aftertaste on this, how it just warms up and blossoms, and it really kind of does this thing where it goes through the palate and then it just blossoms into this chocolatey flavor in the back of the palate that's awesome.
It's really wonderful. Yeah, it's really wonderful. How did you get into being a distiller in the first place? Like, how did you learn how to do this?
So I was getting ready to graduate from law school and then decided I did not want to be a lawyer. So I decided what better idea than to drag my brother away from his paying job in 401k and go on a crazy adventure. So we had years before visited a small distillery, and we said when we retire, this is what we were going to do. We're going to start a distillery. Me getting ready to graduate from law school, decided why wait till I'm retired when I have
That's a lot of years to retire.
Yeah, that's a long time.
And I want whiskey now.
And by the time you retire, you'll have some of that older whiskey that we talked about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, I'm young and dumb right now. I've got all the energy in the world. Why not get out there and no one's relying on me, so I might as well, I can spend as many nights as I need to at the distillery.
Right.
And so we just kind of jumped into it. And what we decided was, well, neither of us knows how to make whiskey, and I think my mother pointed that out very strongly, quite adamantly to us.
There's
Leave
one,
it to Mom.
One small problem with your plan, gentlemen.
Neither of you know what the heck you're doing.
So what did you do?
For us, we were like, well, if you don't know how to make it, go to the people that do know how to make it.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, we kind of traveled all around the country. And then my mom and I actually went out first to Kentucky. Obviously, they know how to make whiskey out there.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard there's whiskey in Kentucky.
Yeah, I've heard. There's a few distilleries there.
There's a whole trail of it somewhere out there.
Yeah.
So we went out there. From there, we decided, well, okay, we've seen that version of making whiskey, but there's tons of other distilling methodologies, and even they were all a little bit different from each other. And so we're like, well, let's go and see what else there is. So that's how we ultimately found our way to Hubert and Nancy Fraley with this French methodology, and we just kind of fell in love with it. Again, we'd been Armagnac cognac fans all along, and that just kind of solidified that that's kind of the direction we wanted to go, especially since we knew we were coming to Texas, and the French have a specific way of dealing with barrels and oak and tannin. For us, that made a lot of sense. If we're going to be here in this intense environment that is Texas, why not use some of those techniques? So that's really where we kind of dug into those French, not only the distilling methodology, but how they manage their barrel rooms is really so the process they call élevage, which literally means to raise spirits. And so you're tasting barrels constantly. It makes way more fun to be in the barrel room.
Say, I'm already in on this. Yeah, absolutely. Love this idea.
Every 3 to 4 months, we taste through every barrel in the warehouse, and we're tracking how it's aging, how it's maturing. And again, from there, we can adjust barrels. I can change proof in cask. For non-bourbons, I can actually move it from barrel to barrel. Again, move it to a barrel that's more exhaustive. If it's got too much oak, or it's not pulling on enough oak, I can move it to a different barrel that has more oak. You can change the proof in barrel to encourage whether you're pulling out the wood sugars or more let it go higher proof if you're going to want more tannin and more phenols, smoke, that type of stuff. Vanillins up there as well. So you can really play around and really individually tailor each barrel.
So you don't sound like a guy that started out not knowing what he was doing. I mean, seriously, like this is something you've really absorbed and learned along the way.
It is, and again, even since we started, it's been a learning process. Again, Denison is actually sister cities with Cognac, and so because
Denison is where the distillery is.
At. So we're basically, you drive north till you see Oklahoma, and then you hit the brakes, and we're right on.
Which
right
is
on the border.
always a good idea if you're driving north towards Oklahoma.
Exactly.
Oh man, we just lost both our Oklahoma listeners.
I think I've been there once. A friend of mine's parents retired there. Isn't there a big golf community out there?
I mean, there's a couple golf courses out there. So yeah, it's entirely possible.
But this is where you started the distillery, and your sister cities
is Cognac
with Cognac. Denison, Texas is sister cities with Cognac. That's crazy. Yeah. I love it.
And so there's an actual reason for that too. So back in the late 1800s, a guy that was living in Denison was a famous viticulturist. And so he was trying to figure out how to grow European grapes in the U.S. because we have all these diseases here that would kill grapes after a couple of years. And so he found that there was a Texas grape that while the grapes were terrible for making wine or eating, they're extremely hardy because it lives in this crazy environment. So he started just grafting the European grapes on top of these Texas grape roots, and
to see if he could come up with a combination that made sense.
Right,
and
they began to flourish. And so it's resistant specifically to something called phylloxera, which is it's a little it's transferred by little mites that kind of burrow into grape roots. And the Texas
sounds like something from Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
I was going to say, I thought it was a Star Trek character. Phylloxera. I remember that episode. But it's resistant to some of the things
to that. And so in that same time period, phylloxera, because of steam engines and transfer between different continents, was much faster, got switched over to Europe. And when it got there, it was like smallpox hitting. It wiped out over 80% of the French grapes. Bordeaux, Burgundy, Cognac were all decimated. He got into Italy and Spain, and I mean all.
And
in
when
Germany.
was this? What time period?
Late 1800s, early 1900s.
Okay. Yep.
So turn of the century. And so the French, after losing a lot of grapes, freaked out a little bit. So they started scouring the world trying to find solutions. And this guy in Denison had been sending documents to the Smithsonian. They didn't do any grape research, didn't really care about it, so they just kind of put it in a box in the corner. And when the French showed up, they were like, hey, we don't do any research on this, but there's this weird guy in Texas that's sending us stuff. Why don't you guys take a look at what he's been doing and see if it works? Next thing you know, he's sending them the Texas grape roots. They're bringing it back over, and now that region, France and most of Europe's their grapes are grown on top of descendants of Texas grapes.
So Denison, Texas saved the French wine industry.
Yes.
That's amazing.
What a great story.
Yeah.
That's so awesome. I love that. And I love this, by the way. Thank you very much. This is also one of those, and I love this when I have opened a whiskey and poured it at home, when it seems to get more and more enjoyable with each sip, and this definitely has that.
Now, I got to ask you, is this what you envisioned when you just started making this, or did you taste it out of the barrel and go, "Oh yeah, that was totally it, guys"?
I mean, it's been an evolving thing. Again, when we started out, I think one of the things that Nancy brought to us was like envision the profile that you're looking for, because that's how you're going to decide how you're going to try to make your whiskeys. And so we wanted something that had some chocolate to it. We wanted something that had like an earthy minerality, because to me that's a little bit more refreshing on the palate. And we wanted something that was distinctively a little bit different than what they're doing in Kentucky, because if I'm just copying what Kentucky's doing, you're going to get a lot of state pride stuff for doing a good job of that style, but at the end of the day, they can do it cheaper, and more than likely they're going to be able to do it better because they've been doing it 100 years.
Such higher aspirations than, like, if I were doing it, I'd have been just like, okay, what I really want is for this to not suck. Yeah. That would be what I was looking for.
I'm constantly amazed at how you come up with the different flavors on these. Like, one of my favorites is whiskeys right now is actually local, Whitmeyer's, and it's very chocolatey.
Yes.
Yeah.
The single malt that he did is so chocolatey and
that's
fantastic.
The one. I absolutely love that. This is
Shout out to you,
but
Travis.
it's a very different kind of chocolatey.
Yeah,
I saw he was on here too a little while ago.
That's great.
But this is a different kind of chocolatey flavor, so it's interesting because it's chocolatey but not the same chocolatey. And they're both whiskey. I don't know. I'm fascinated by how you find these different.
I love it. All right,
bits of that.
We got to take a break. We'll come back and talk about this even further when we do our next whiskey tasting. What are we going to next?
We got Promethean coming up next. So now we're
Promethean.
doing.
Now you're really starting to sound. That sounds like a ship, like a Star Trek ship.
It should be. It should be.
I was on board the Promethean,
and then we're trying Event Horizon.
Yes,
and after that is gonna.
Right. But we will also be trying next, and this should be interesting, is an IPA, a Citra Smash IPA from Brooklyn, New York, from Kings County Brewer Collective, called Robot Fish. And so we'll show you the Robot Fish coming up here in just a moment. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 174, halfway to 200. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It's Smoking and Toasting at show number 174. We are brought to you by the fine folks at B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston, and in the shops at Clear Fork in Fort Worth. And, of course, these guys are now operating the Annie Cafe and Bar, which is, Cafe Annie was one of the first legendary Houston, like, top-tier restaurants, and it went on for many years, and now these guys have taken it over. They brought back the original chef, and they've revitalized the menu, and apparently it's doing gangbusters, so go check it out. It's the Annie Cafe and Bar. It's on Post Oak in Houston if you are in the greater Houston area. Welcome back to the world-famous Smoking and Toasting.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom. That's why we're world-famous. I'd said I was not willing, Robert, I'd said I was not willing to say that we were world-famous until my mom actually knew about the show. And it took a while, but she is now aware, and so... I'm now not at all embarrassed to say that we're world famous, because if my mom knows, we've definitely cracked some sort of public consciousness out there somewhere. Because
My mom knows now too, so you got two moms.
Yeah, but see, my mom doesn't smoke or drink any alcohol, so there was a little bit higher wall to climb there, I think, perhaps. So, speaking of smoking and drinking alcohol, the front man for the Christian rock and roll band Stryper, Michael Sweet, who I think, by the way, is really a talented dude.
Yep.
He has pushed back against criticism over a photo that he posted on social media on Monday, February 17th, on his Instagram feed. He shared a picture of himself and Stryper bassist Perry Richardson smoking cigars, along with the caption, "We're enjoying a long overdue day off and celebrating in San Antonio. I haven't smoked a good cigar in probably a year or so at least. Thank you, Perry Richardson, for this moment. Life is all about celebrating with my love at Champagne Suite 21, which I believe that's his wife. Good times. This is what it's all about. Next time with you, at Prime Ministries." So being that Stryper's an openly Christian act, some of the band's fans have reacted negatively to Michael posting a photo of him and the bass player smoking cigars.
Christians not allowed to smoke cigars?
I don't know. See, I know.
Is it an unchristian thing to smoke cigars? I don't think that's completely
I know
ridiculous.
of a church, right, not too far from where I live, where they actually have a cigar club at the church. Like, there's guys from the church who will get together, once a month or so and enjoy smoking cigars, and fellowship, if you will, together. So I don't know that that's a thing. There's not apparently the people who have a problem with this point out that the Bible contains principles showing that God does not approve of unhealthy and unclean habits, and thus smoking would be a sin.
Isn't worrying about what your neighbors are doing more than what you're doing an unclean habit?
Well, I would just tell you this. I don't know a lot of Bible verses, but I do know some. And I do know there's one that says, "Let he who is without sin cast the first stone." So if you're throwing stones at Michael Sweet, you're already just as guilty as he is, assuming he's guilty.
You know what really sucks is this poor guy was just happy to sit down, chill with a cigar, and have a good time, and wanted to share his happy moment.
And
this is the crap that he gets.
Right. That's exactly
because someone cares more about what he's doing than what's going on in their own life. And I want to point out that if your job is to sit around and worry about what other people are doing, you must have a really, really, really good life. And I'm envious of that person.
Well, I guess so. I don't know.
Because, holy cow, I've got enough stuff for me to think about.
Glass houses and all,
Yes.
Unhealthy habits. That is a giant genre of things. It's like, what? Are you upset that he ate at McDonald's too?
I was
like, what's going on?
Don't eat a cookie.
Yeah,
Clearly, you don't eat fast food. Because, and this is what I've been able to tell, whenever somebody says to me, smoking a cigar, that's bad for you, I go, everything is bad for you. Everything. There's nothing. You can drink too much water and die.
That's true.
I mean, it's just you have to.
Too much sunlight.
Too much sunlight. Too much. Right.
Too much not sunlight.
Right. Too many vegetables can kill you.
Yes.
It can happen. Maybe not all the time, but it happens.
Too much meat.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it doesn't matter. Too much. You say too much anything, and it can kill you. Right? Mm-hmm. Cell phones kill people. They're staring at it while they're driving.
But
cars kill people all the time. Why aren't they mad at cars?
Well, and of course
they kill women and children and everything else.
We talk about this on the show a lot, though, is that we live in a time of what we call outrage culture. People always seem to be looking for something to be pissed off about.
Yeah. Well, they got to be their own victims. Yeah. Is what really boils down to.
So Michael Sweet, enjoy.
Heck yeah.
Enjoy your cigar, and just for you, I will go on Spotify today and stream "To Hell with the Devil," one of the Stryper songs.
Nice.
The only one I can remember the name of.
Soldiers Under God's Command.
Oh, there you go. Soldiers.
Honestly.
See, you remember more than I do. That's good.
On.
That's good.
Stryper, man, they rock.
Welcome back to show number 174. Speaking of rocks, we had a beer in the first segment that I think we were all just blown away by.
Yeah, it was super good.
And it may have set the bar pretty high for this IPA. We are about to try a Kings County Brewers Collective Robot Fish Citra Smash IPA. And by the way, this may be one of the coolest cover arts of any, I still call it cover art, which shows you like that's a music business
You're old,
term.
dude.
Yeah, I'm old. But
music hasn't had cover art in a long time.
decades at this point.
I teach kids how to play guitar. Sometimes a book like a guitar teaching book comes with a CD in there.
Yeah.
And multiple times kids point at it and go, "What is that?" They don't even know what a CD is.
You
Like,
be
this is
kidding
for
me. They
real.
don't even know what it is?
So no one uses it. When's the last time
understand.
you actually physically put a CD in something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
See?
It's
Exactly.
been a while. It's been a while.
You know?
You don't even
This
use
is- I
DVDs
think-
anymore.
I think that tactile and that tactile thing and then the visual perspective, I think this is why albums are coming back in such a, like the vinyl
Right, because
are
you've
coming
got this
back in
big
such
thing,
in such a big way, because I remember when an artist came out with a new album, man, you bring it home and you just stare at the artwork, and then you pull it out and you want to look and see if they have a fold out with the lyrics and all this other stuff going on. I mean, that was an experience. It wasn't just, oh, there's a song, go.
And if your favorite artist put out a new album, there was something really exciting about that moment between when you put the needle down and the first note played, where you were hearing
Just the little crackle of the needle,
and waiting for the song to start. Waiting for it.
True
Yes.
Nirvana right there.
Yeah, yes, it is. Kings County Brewers Collective Robot Fish IPA. It's a Citra Smash IPA. Kings County Brewers Collective is out of Brooklyn, New York. We have actually tried one of their beers on the show before. I don't remember how it did. I think we liked it. But now we are.
I will
now
tell you,
we're
the
trying
artwork on this
IPA.
is amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And clearly, this is one of those.
Josh is going to be sorry he's not
very,
watching this
very
one.
juicy IPAs. Yes. Well, Josh only listens to the show, right?
He only listens. He doesn't like the way we look.
Yeah. I don't blame him for that. But you do miss some great cover art, if I can use that phrase.
All right, the
again.
story behind this is I have a friend of mine who listens to us on podcasts and never, because he's always driving around, and he never
Yeah.
gets a chance to watch the show.
So
So when we talk about how cool stuff looks, he's like, "Man, I never get to see it." So I try to describe it. This is a robot fish. It has this Destructo robot-looking thing going through.
but it's also a little cartoonish, right?
Like way-
it's like
way
the
under-
colors
yeah, oh,
are
yeah,
very,
very
fun
much.
and yeah.
I'm gonna
yeah.
hold that up to the
It
camera.
isn't.
and
It
let
isn't like a dark-looking thing, even though the robot fish looks a little aggressive. It's still the colors make it come off kind of fun and Saturday morning cartoonish.
That's
maybe.
pretty darn awesome.
I'm gonna date myself a little bit. It reminds me if the Transformer cartoon movie.
Yeah.
It looks like there's a fish thing during the last part of it when they're on the junk planet. It looks like to me it looks.
Are you
exactly
talking
like
about
that.
the one that White Lion did the soundtrack for?
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Wait.
Did I just date myself?
Yeah. I used to date myself a lot. I was a very lonely guy. But I'm ching. But so this beer almost nothing on the nose. I don't really get a lot
I
on
wouldn't
the
say
nose.
almost nothing, but I will tell you, like for a juicy, what do you call it, a juicy IPA?
Yeah, well, they're just calling it a citrus smash.
Single
but
citrus smash.
Clearly,
I expected
it clearly is a juicy
more
New
IPA.
England style IPA.
It's hazy as all get out.
Yes,
Yes,
it is.
it is definitely hazy. Although it doesn't look
It's also
very viscous.
It also is delicious. It's practically like drinking an orange juice that's been spiked with something.
I got a lot of lime and citrus on the nose.
There is, yeah, there is some lime in there for sure. It's
I get grapefruit and lime.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of zest, like a lot of the right next to the peel,
yes.
or those little stringy things in between the orange slices that get stuck in your teeth sometimes.
So I will say, as the resident, guy on the show that loves IPAs, this is really, really good. Like this jumps right into my top 10. But what do you think, Ian? Not being the IPA guy, what about you?
I think it's good. I have no problem. I could pound a can of that with no problem. I like the the citrus fruitiness of it.
Doesn't have that super bitter,
but it still
resinous
tastes like
finish.
beer.
Yeah, still tastes like
it doesn't
beer.
just taste like orange juice to me. It has a
Right.
beer flavor to it with the other flavors. The finish is super friendly on it.
Yes, it is.
Like,
Super friendly.
You expect the finish to either be more bitter or more dry or more resiny, and it's not any of those things. I mean, it finishes with a bitter snap, and it's just gone, like almost instantly. It's really, really weird.
It's like really light. Like it's
Yeah.
the finish and then
Yeah, finish and done.
Yeah.
Like, so this is poundable, is what this is.
Yeah, it really is. And this
So-
would be, and you know how some IPAs are just like too heavy for like around the pool summer drinking. This would work for around the pool summer drinking, even though it's not necessarily a sessionable. Can you see what the ABV is on that, Ian?
6.6 actually, and it
it's
doesn't.
it's pretty light.
Yeah, It tastes pretty darn good.
Yeah, I love it.
Single malt, single hop smash, India Pale Ale, 100% Citra, 100% Halcyon barley. Maybe I'm saying that right. Halcyon, Halcyon. That's the only way I know how to pronounce it.
Barley, yeah.
Says store cold and drink fresh, can 1216, so not too far out.
Mm-hmm. It does strike me as one you would want to drink pretty fresh.
Yeah, definitely. And I got to tell you, it's 2 months out on this already.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what it tastes like.
Right out of the tap.
Right out of the tap. I bet it's even more
exciting.
This is quite drinkable. I have no problems with this. As an IPA, I think they hit the mark on a lot of it.
I don't know whether it's. I'm going to assume that it's a limited release, as so many IPA breweries are doing now, where this isn't something you'll be able to get forever. But boy, is it delicious! It really is delicious.
I love the fact that a lot of breweries are doing so many limited releases.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me super happy because I always want to try different stuff.
And that's why they're doing it. The only problem is if you stumble across something that you're like, this is my favorite of this style ever.
That's the downside.
And then you're like, oh, man, it's only going to be available for another
That's
month.
the downside. But if I go into a place that has like an extensive list,
right,
and I'll see a ton of beers that I absolutely love and are amazing.
But you see one that you've never had.
But I try to find the ones that I haven't tried before, and that's where I try to go first.
I think we all do that, and that's why so many breweries are recognizing that and doing so many more. There are some breweries, I think of our friends that we've had on the show at Indigenous Brewing.
Yes.
That those guys, that's all they do.
Yeah.
Is change out their things. And they were at the Houston Whiskey Social.
Speaking of which, did you try that Fruitcake and Friends beer they had?
God, that was good. And
did you try that?
No, I didn't get a chance to try that.
That stuff was so good.
From the name, I didn't expect to like it, and it was delicious.
It was absolutely amazing. It was so good, I wanted to put it on my nipples, and they're not even sensitive.
There you go. And then what was the porter they had?
There was a bourbon barrel aged porter that they had. That was
it
was crazy good too. But
those guys have got it going on.
That's the one I had. I really
and as often as they change beers, I was thinking we should just have them on the show once a month.
Yeah, right.
Because they would have new beers and be back with. But they've done some great IPAs and other things as well. So really dig those guys.
They're up in the Humble area.
Shout outs, shout outs to all of them. So Robert Licorice from Ironroot Republic is here. Robert, do you and your brother share the distilling duties, or does it fall more on one or the other? Who decides? Okay, this is what we're going to distill next.
My brother is the head distiller, so it's going to fall mostly on him as far as setting schedules and doing that. I get the wonderful job of starting things up in the morning generally. So thank you guys for getting me out of that this morning. I really appreciate that.
I get to sleep in.
Now I understand why he brought so many good bottles.
That's right. That's right. So he's the one that kind of heads up production. Again, coming from his engineering background, he's got so many degrees I can't even count.
All the I's are dotted and
yeah,
the T's are crossed.
It's industrial engineering, mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering. He's got them all. And so he really focuses a lot on, especially on the front end, and then doing, especially initial blends and stuff like that. He takes a lot of lead on those things.
See, and I think that's awesome. Like it puts you in a good situation because he can handle the heavy lifting on that, and you can be the guy who goes, yeah, that's not quite right. We'll keep going. So I would rather be that guy. You know what I mean?
It tends to be a lot more fun to do that end, at least in my opinion. You may disagree with that.
Go with your strengths, sir. Go with your strengths.
And remember, when you taste it and it's not quite what you wanted, it's like, you need to keep working on this. When you taste it and you're like, oh, that's perfect, it's like, we nailed it.
Yeah. Together, we did it all together.
And then you try 3 more glasses.
Yeah. Speaking of trying more glasses, what are we trying next?
So next up, we're gonna break up the round of Harbingers here with the Promethean.
Oh, let's get that on. Ooh!
Oh, that was awesome.
That may be one of the best ones we've ever had on the show.
That's right up there with Mark shotgunning a beer while we were talking. That's pretty good.
That just went on in the background. That will live on in Smoking and Toasting infamy forever. All right, so the Harbinger. What are we doing?
Oh
here?
my gosh!
So with Promethean.
This is not Harbinger. This is Promethean.
This is Promethean. So this guy is.
I want this on pancakes right now.
Oh gosh, yeah. He is our.
Just don't ask me to put it on your nipples.
Wait till you smell it.
This is our workhorse. So at the distillery, we use it for all of our old fashions. We're up to 103 proof now, so now it's big enough to stand up in cocktails really well, but just on its own too. I absolutely love it. But this guy is going to be focuses of the 4 core mash bills, has more of the low rye and more of the Floriani flint corn, which is where a lot of the spice and a lot of the flavor of this particular whiskey is coming from that Floriani corn.
A lot more spice in this.
Yeah, did this start at a lower proof and you've worked it up? Is that what I detected you were saying?
So yeah, we started with the 90 and this is the 103.
Well, we started, now we're working up.
I thought you meant this particular whiskey started at a lower proof.
We do play around with barrel entry proof quite a bit, but this guy, I mean, generally they're going to start between 114 and 118.
Oh, okay, that's
maple syrup and toffee.
That is delicious. This is my kind of whiskey right here.
So good.
This is just wonderful. Ian,
what do you describe this as? Am I even close? You're like, it doesn't taste anything like
that.
No.
We get a lot of I get a lot of maple syrup. I get a lot of that almost like a little Mexican chocolate. So it's got the kind of cayenne pepper spice.
It's a little chocolate, but it's not the same kind of chocolate as
the first one. No, this one's like that one. The first one to me rides more like milk chocolatey, where this one has a little bit more of the dark chocolate, but the spice, it's like it's been infused with some sort of cayenne pepper.
And this is all grain to glass, right?
Yeah, it's all grain to glass. Everything we do that says Ironroot on it is 100% made by us.
Now, there's nothing wrong with blending whiskey, but when you can get this out of stuff that you have sourced, the actual ingredients and distilled them yourself, grain to glass, that's very impressive. Very impressive.
This is so good.
No, thank you very much. Yeah, to me, and again, this is where we really start showcasing. We use a traditional, more a Scottish-style pot still for the whiskey, and it's got this downward angle off the top because we love really oily, heavier whiskeys, and this is the viscosity really starts showing up.
I don't know if it'll even show up on the camera, but the oiliness of this really sticks to the glass. Like if you're familiar with wine, how the wine can have legs. This has huge legs and sticks to the glass, and the oiliness, as far as tasting it on your palate, the oiliness spreads it across the palate and makes it linger a bit, but it really, really spreads it across the palate.
It just hangs out with you, and so again, the really unique thing on this, the corn that we use, that's going to be the primary in this one, that Floriani corn, is that it's a flint corn, which is more similar to popcorn than it is to the yellow dent that you use for typically most everything.
Interesting.
And so it has some just richness to it that we don't see with other corns. And so that's why we really dig into it.
If you heat it up too much, sometimes you have to accidentally watch a movie.
We do. We ironically, we do roast some of the corns, and if we're not careful, it will turn into popcorn, and we just end up having to eat it and then go and do another batch.
And then go put on Netflix.
Yeah, you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention.
Yes, it is.
That's right.
Yes, it is. Speaking of popping popcorn, I just wanted to mention that Sunday is the premiere of Season 5 of Better Call Saul.
Ooh.
So very excited about that show coming back.
You told me that was good. I haven't watched it.
Oh, dude.
Of course, I haven't watched that's a spinoff from...
you don't watch Breaking Bad?
Breaking Bad.
Okay, you and my wife. I'm just going to strangle both of you. It's only the greatest television show of all time.
Yes,
Ever.
I mean, I could watch it. I suppose I could take my TV outside, but usually I like to sit outside with
take your TV
a whiskey
outside.
or a beer and have a cigar.
Dude, iPad.
Boom.
You can watch
or sometimes
on
even a pipe where I point like I'm about to say something and then don't say anything. So I'm going to put the pipe back in my mouth because it looks awesome, even if I'm by myself.
Yeah, even if you're by yourself, it's very impressive. So I'm going to tell you what I do. So I've used the
you have the perfect setup for that.
I do.
Though.
It's the greatest thing ever, and I'm so excited about it. I get all hyped up when I talk about it. It's taken me a little while to get it set up the right way, but I live in a high-rise apartment. We're up like 32 floors, and so I generally, when I smoke on the balcony, right? We have a nice balcony there, and so I don't like to... for a while, I was smoking in the doorway when my wife and I would watch a movie. But then I'm standing up, and some of the smoke's coming back in the apartment. That's not really the optimal thing. So finally, I figured it out. We use the Sonos sound system I
You just
built
take a
it.
speaker outside with you.
They have a Move speaker that's battery operated. Like it charges in a thing. It's called the Sonos Move. I pick it up. I take it outside. I shut the sliding glass door. I smoke to my heart's content, and the speaker keeps the sound perfect while I watch the movie through the sliding glass door. And every now and then I open up the movie and like blow a kiss to my wife. It's awesome.
Yeah, I got like a 40-inch TV that I just sometimes pick up and take outside.
Yeah, that'll work too.
But I don't want to do that every night.
I understand. Well,
Like, it's
I
not
don't-
that heavy, but it's really awkward.
Well, I don't know how we got from this amazing whiskey to that, but that's this is
That was a
something
popcorn thing. This
I
is
would
so
really
good.
enjoy while watching Breaking Bad.
I
can tell you
really,
that.
really okay. So this is something that I've done from time to time before. If you're sitting there with a chocolate cake
Yes.
with a little bit of ice cream on top, you dump a little bit of this on top of there, and I say dump it because this would be amazing, like all over it.
Soaks
Right,
into
am
the
I
cake,
wrong?
And you're
Am
not
I
wrong.
wrong?
You are not wrong.
yes, yes.
Phenomenal.
Like
Ugh.
this would go so well with any dessert anyway, or stroop waffles. Imagine this with stroop waffles. Oh my gosh! Like,
Wow.
maybe I'm hungry.
A little bit of
I'm
coffee,
impressed.
put the strufel on top of it with the whiskey in it. Yeah.
Oh
We're
man,
gonna keep thinking of desserts while we take a break, and we'll be right back. What are we trying in the next segment?
We're going to try Harbinger 115, the
All right.
award winner.
And then in the final segment, we'll try 2. So
Right.
we're looking forward to that. And we also have another beer to try, an Imperial Stout. So,
All
Ian,
right.
stand by. We'll be right back.
you know, we
Welcome
might be
back.
able to just get in touch with the artists
With
here
the
for this
Suffers,
one,
yeah.
the Suffers.
I could call Cam.
do that.
I don't have Cam's phone number, but I know people who know her. So
I might
can,
have John's phone number if he has the same number.
Yeah.
There's an N.
You know, there's an end. You should go. You should call John.
I
And
have
ask
played
him.
with the trumpet player before.
And tell John, by the way, and John plays trumpet for the Suffers, who that was their bumper music. Tell John he would be welcome to come on the show and sample with us
yes,
when the band is back in town.
I'll give
We're
him a
speaking
call.
of a band that is based out of here in Houston, where we're based out of, called the Suffers. They do Gulf Coast soul, and they're wonderful.
it's really good. It's
They're
really good.
wonderful. They're just wonderful.
Yeah. It's really good music.
If you have fantasized about dropping a few $1,000s on a bottle of rare scotch, slightly more expensive than the Promethean, you might want to rethink that investment. Scientists have found that half the bottles of aged single malts they tested, and I'm talking about the really older aged bottles, were not as old as their labels suggested. Rare bottles of vintage Scotch whiskey. We're not necessarily talking about like a Balvenie 30 or something like that.
Right.
But rare bottles of vintage Scotch whiskey, highly prized by collectors and connoisseurs, they command outrageous prices, so a lot of counterfeit single malts have become a bit of a problem. Enter an unusual solution. Fallout from nuclear bomb tests conducted in the 1950s and 1960s can actually help detect fake antique whiskey. You're
Now
nodding.
there's-
You know about this.
now
Oh, yeah.
there's a
Oh, yeah.
silver lining.
Yeah, right. Right.
It's helping us everybody out.
A glowing silver lining.
Don't worry. It'll kill millions of people, but we'll be able to, in the future, detect fake antique whiskey. No, nuclear bombs that were detonated decades ago put the radioactive isotope carbon-14 into the atmosphere. And so basically what that did was it was absorbed by plants and other living organisms and began to decay after the organisms died. Traces of it can therefore be found in barley that was harvested and distilled. You're nodding. You know this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Harvested
Oh, yeah.
and distilled to make whiskey. Carbon-14 decays at a known rate. Therefore, you can actually calculate when you detect it in a whiskey. You can calculate how old the whiskey actually is.
Wow.
And so this can be used to debunk some of the age statements that, again, this is not necessarily so much about whiskey makers who are lying about their age statements as it is about counterfeiters.
Fakers.
Yeah,
putting-
people who are
coming up with fakes.
making an
Yeah.
old bottle and trying
Yeah,
to sell it
so-
for $1 million bucks.
Yeah, so I thought that was interesting.
And a lot of things some of the fakers don't know, because it's not common knowledge that they talk about in the Scotch whiskey industry, but they actually will change some of the barley varietals that they use every 5 or 6 years, because they are literally constantly developing new barley varietals for one reason or another. And so the barley from the whiskey that was made in the 70s is not what's being used
It's a different
today.
barley, right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, same thing from what was being used in the 50s is different. So
so you could tell by what kind of barley it was.
Exactly.
Which is something that would be testable and detectable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Makes absolute sense. This is what grain to glass people know,
Yeah.
right? It really is. Ian, sitting on Mr. Twirlygig, we have our final beer for the show, although we have one more segment where we'll still be doing some more whiskeys, but it's called Standard of Proof, and it is from a really interesting brewery in Rock Hill, South Carolina, called Legal Remedy Brewing Company. It's an Imperial Stout aged in bourbon barrels. I have a feeling this is slightly higher than the 2.5% ABV that we had originally.
That's possible.
Yes, and I
At
thought
12%, yes.
maybe you can work on
I
getting
believe
bit-
that makes it very much times the proof.
Yes, very much times the proof. Now, I noticed that this has got a wax-covered top. Can you just take that bottle opener and do that, or do you
I
need
was
to?
trying to, but it wasn't
Yeah.
going to happen.
It was a smoking and toasting long stem bottle opener, so that was pretty cool. But I know
Particularly awesome.
I know you love to whip out the hunting knife. So
Dude, this knife is awesome.
yeah, I know it really is.
You check this out, look. Fully auto, baby. Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah.
Isn't that illegal in some states?
Yes, but not in Texas.
Not in Texas. That's right.
Because Texas, baby.
Because Texas. Ian is popping the top on this bad boy, standard of proof, and anything from the opening of the bottle on the nose.
Chocolate.
Oh, good. I think
like-
we can all agree chocolate's a good thing.
It's a good place to start.
Yes,
There
it
we go.
is. Yes,
Yeah,
it
you know,
is.
chocolate has been threading through the theme today. My cigar had some chocolatey kind of flavors.
Yes, we had some chocolate in that Promethean.
So-
Yeah,
chocolate in both of our whiskeys so far.
wonderful.
We
Wonderful.
did not have chocolate in the IPA. That would actually be a little weird, I think.
That would have been a little weird. A chocolate IPA, yeah, that doesn't sound like a good thing at all. Actually,
I think that's called an American-style barley wine.
I think that
I tell you what, the craziest thing that I've heard recently on the brewing side is we've got some friends at 903 Brewers in Sherman.
love 903.
They've been releasing this series of slushies that have just been fantastic, especially the last 4 or 5 that they've done have just been crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. They're doing a stout slushy, and I have no
Ooh.
idea what that's going to be like.
That's either going to be
I
awesome.
can't see that
or-
being bad at all.
Yeah, that's
It's
either-
going to be, it's like a chocolate slushy, which, I mean, to me, that becomes milkshake then at that point. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
I've heard of milkshake IPAs, but not milkshake
Yeah,
stouts.
so I'm,
you know?
I'm excited. But yeah, those guys are doing some really
This
cool
right
stuff.
here,
Mm-hmm.
you remember that barley wine that we pretty much hated last week?
I'm trying to make it up
Or
to you
2
with
weeks
this.
ago.
This was my goal was to bring this one in and make it up to
If
you.
that barley wine tasted like this, because this is a stout
Yeah.
that tastes very barley wine-like. The only
It
thing
does,
that
yeah.
separates it is the coffee notes that you get in here
Mm-hmm.
are very not so barley wine. But
With a little espresso in there, yeah.
yeah, that coffee espresso kind of flavor. But the rest of this, I mean, there is date and raisin in there. There is so much sweetness.
Mm.
Yeah, this is outstanding.
It really
delicious.
is good.
Yes.
Really is good. Any thoughts?
To me, like I'm getting almost like a fortified wine type now. Some of the nuttiness and some of that fruit. Like again, it's bourbon barrel aged. So, but I'm getting
It's like
some
pecan
really cool,
shell in there
yeah,
almost, yeah.
that tannin that you usually see from those sorts of things. Like I'm digging it.
I love this. It's like
There's almost a, and this may be crazy, there's almost a red wine vibe going on in
Yes.
there.
Yeah,
Am I
as I said,
totally
like
nuts?
a wine, like a fortified wine type thing. Yeah, that's what I was getting on.
it's got a certain
Yeah.
it's got a certain heft to it also that I really like. It's like it I'm trying to say this correctly, but it just feels serious. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like when you drink it, it's like, okay, I'm drinking something really, really real here.
Yeah, it's
You know?
not messing around.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not messing around.
No,
It-
this is
The
this
flavors
is,
are delicious.
This is outstanding. What was we had somebody on here not too long ago that had the fortified wine, brought the
Was that when Mark Burrell was here?
no, what were we drinking that we weren't used to drinking on its own that you'd usually put into a
Sherry, Madeira, port.
I don't know. Was it like a wasn't a gin, was it?
what do you put into, let's see. I'll think about it. There's something in here that reminds me of that thing, but I can't remember what it is.
But yeah, it's got to me the nuttiness, like that you see from
Vermouth.
Vermouth, that's what it was.
Like
You're right.
an oxidized wine a little bit.
And we're
Yes.
very not used to drinking vermouth by itself.
Yes.
You know?
Who brought that? That was pretty crazy.
Chris Hart?
Was it Chris Hart that brought the vermouth?
No. Was it Pierre Ferrand or was it one? It was.
I don't know now.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
By the way, can I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
state that right now?
We have Docs on the show regularly because I'm so in love with their rums, and he
somebody
brings
had us
all
drinking,
kinds of
Somebody
great.
has drinking vermouth, and we were blown away by how good the vermouth
All right, we have
by
to
itself was.
we have to go back and check that out.
But this has a little of that vibe to it because of the it's sweet, it's thick, it's fortified wine kind of. There's almost a.
I think it was Jeremiah. I think Jeremiah brought some.
Was it Jeremiah that brought the
That's-
vermouth?
I think he did.
We'd have to look
Well,
back.
all right,
We'd have
we'll look back
We've
and
done
see.
174 of these. I
I
can't
was gonna
remember
say-
every one of them. I only remember 170.
About 172 of them, yeah,
But,
right. Including the Lost Show.
I don't
so-
remember the 100th episode at all.
Yeah, well, very few people do.
It was a long
were
5
there?
hours.
If you remember it, you weren't there.
Now you realize, of course, Robert, that on the 100th show, and we'll do this on the 200th as well, that everyone who's ever been on a guest on the show is invited. So you are invited
Be
officially
careful.
to
Be
the
careful
200th
with such
show.
things.
Yeah, you're
Oh
officially
yeah,
invited.
this is so good, and I'm curious. Can I try? What was the one that had the maple?
Maple.
That was
Promethean.
the
Can I try just the tiniest
Yeah,
little bit in
yeah.
there? I want to see how they back each other. Because I'm willing to bet that those two things are going to form like Voltron.
Yeah, which would, by the way,
A
be
little bit
the,
more bourbon in your bourbon barrel aged beer. I like it.
and the second Transformers reference on the show today.
Yeah, we're hanging out in the 80s today.
That's so good. Do you have any of that left?
No, I don't. Well, a tiny. Yeah, I've got enough probably to.
Sure.
But,
yeah, I mean,
but no, I mean, no, I don't. I don't have nearly enough left to.
So what's funny is sometimes you'll find a beer and a whiskey thing that.
Did you go
whiskey-
beer first or whiskey first?
I went beer first, but we've been tasting the beer. But the whiskey after the beer is so silky. It's almost like creme brulee whiskey at this point
You're so right.
with maple.
It has a creaminess to it that I wouldn't have necessarily noticed as much before. That's delicious.
so we actually do a secondary fermentation that's a malolactic fermentation on the back end that's really designed to amp that creaminess up of the whiskey. Again, everything we do is mouthfeel based because that's one of my biggest things is how does the whiskey feel in your
How it feels when
on
you're
your
drinking
palate.
it, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's delicious.
And go back to the beer is also amazing.
You may
It
have
doesn't change
you may
the
have to pour me a
beer
little
as
so I can
much
do that, so.
as you'd think, but it highlights the caramely kind of flavors in the beer.
Yeah, and the
Right,
creme
right.
brulee notes. start
Yes,
really
yes,
popping.
and the burnt caramely kind of things.
And let me just say,
That's a
there
fun
is-
thing together.
there is not a thing wrong with creme brulee. Creme brulee, not a thing wrong.
No, but it does bring out that crusty top
Yes,
layer,
oh,
you know.
for sure. The almost burnt,
yeah.
creme
Flamed
brulee, yeah.
sugars. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it
Well,
does.
and then,
Because the
you know-
coffee notes and the bitter on the beer really, really have that
So
same kind of thing.
what's happening right now is, to me, one of the whole reasons that I love doing this. That I think people enjoy the hobby of trying these spirits, and when you're able to go back and forth and things really complement each other well, and you're able to get these experiences that you wouldn't get individually. To me, and you're doing it with people you like hanging out with. That's what this is all about.
Oh, yeah.
you know,
It's the
That's what
entire
it's
point.
all about.
Speaking of which,
Yes.
what are we trying next?
So next up, we're doing the big guy, the 115 proof Harbinger. Well, we'll do a single barrel later on, but this is the one that won the big award.
Oh, this is the one that won
Yeah.
the big award,
Yeah.
like best whiskey in the universe. I think
Best.
was the award. So I tell you what we're gonna do. You pour that. We'll take a quick break. We'll be back. We'll try two whiskeys in our final segment. It's Smoking and Toasting, show number 174, halfway to 200. We'll be right back. We're doing spirits in the studio with Ironroot Republic, and it is Smoking and Toasting, the world famous Smoking and Toasting.
Hi, Mom.
Craft beer, fine spirits, and hand-rolled cigars. We're brought to you by B&B Butchers and Restaurant, 1814 Washington Ave in Houston. In the shops at Clear Fork and Fort Worth by Cafe Annie, or the Annie Cafe and Bar on Post Oak Boulevard in Houston, BB Lemon on Washington Ave, and BB Italia on Memorial in Houston. So, our sponsor is Houston-based, but they also have a location in Fort Worth, Texas. But our listeners, our viewers really are all over the world. So it raises the question we talk a lot about Texas whiskey and how proud we are being from the state. Can people find Ironroot Republic in states other than Texas, or they have to come here to get it?
No, they can. So we're available in about 30 states.
That's so awesome.
Couple retailers that sell in a few that will ship to a few more. So I think we're available technically in about 37 states now, and 8 countries.
Really?
Yeah, we
Worldwide.
So we partnered up with a company called Berry Brothers and Rudd out of the UK, and they do a special blend of our whiskey that their master blender does because they're the oldest independent bottler in the UK. They've been around since 1697 or something like that.
Just
like
then.
they're dropping the bucket age-wise. And so they sell our whiskeys and a blend of our whiskey for Europe and Asia and all over the place. So
this should work really well for you being on the show today because of the show actually being world famous.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, that's what I've heard.
So I'm glad you're here. We're really glad you're here, partially because we've enjoyed tasting the whiskey so much. And now we are to the one that... So
Do you have that article with you?
Let's
Can I show
actually,
that page?
let's actually get this right. Yeah. From Whiskey Magazine.
Yeah.
From Whiskey Magazine. That's
A warm American whiskey. There you go. Right.
yeah,
So,
buddy.
yeah, that's their American whiskey release right there.
Right. And it's the World Whiskey Awards. A warm welcome. And look at you, #1 right there. Wow, dude.
Yeah.
How freaked out were you when you saw this?
We couldn't believe it. Honestly, it was a absolute shock. As I said, like, there's never been a non-Kentucky based whiskey that won it, or whiskey that originated in Kentucky that won it. And so it's kind of a shot across the bow, a little bit. Again, they put a little bit of target on our back a little bit. Controversy was created.
Right.
The fact that a bourbon could be named from outside of Kentucky
Right.
or Indiana.
Right. Were some people trying to cry foul because they just didn't think that could happen?
I mean, 100%. But again, not that I can fault them from that. I mean, some people, they love that traditional Kentucky profile. There's
a
nothing
lot
wrong
of
with
people, when an Irish whiskey won the Whiskey of the Year, a lot of people were like, what? That can't be true. It can't be an Irish whiskey rather than, something from, something from the island, So it's it's really interesting. Tell me what this does to you, because as we've talked about, you have to prepare whiskey quite a bit in advance before it's ready to go out. What does this do to your existing supply when something's named that obviously it's going to see a spike in sales, right?
It has, and it's draining on current supplies, because especially for us, because we have this dedication that we've set out that every single release that we do of a whiskey has to be older than the previous release we've done on it.
Interesting.
Not only does it need to taste better, but it will be, the age statement will move up.
So when you do your next release of a particular blend or a particular iteration, this will be an older version than the one you released before.
Exactly. And so for the one that we sent in was the 2019 B. That was 27 months old, which is not only an insanely young whiskey. Like, again, Texas whiskey is so bold and brash, even at young ages. Mm-hmm. To me, that's what's so much fun about some of these southern bourbons that are coming out of Texas, Louisiana, New Mexico. There's some really bold and brash whiskey that you can create here, which, again, some older whiskeys will be more elegant, they'll have this leather, tobacco, polish note to them. But you can get some really unique brash. I mean, it's one thing I love about Whitmire's bourbons that he's done, his single malts that he's done, but it's been so popular about Balcones and about Garrison, is that you get
all just such great names that you just
I
dropped
mean,
there,
it's not as much about us as much as it's about Texas whiskey in general, that there is something to this environment. There's something to what's going on here, that you can create such beautiful, unique, spunky young whiskeys, and not that we can't get older whiskeys, because again, as I said, everything we do on our end is we're creating older whiskeys. We have whiskeys at the distillery that are we're 5.5 years old. I've got barrel 1, 5, 7. I mean, the HBS, the Houston Bourbon Society, just did a single barrel number. It was 6, I believe, from us. that was a 5-year-old 2-month, I think is what it ended up being when it came out.
Cool.
That is a fantastic, crazy, fun bourbon that we did, but there are such cool things that happen in a more dynamic environment that you get with some of the Texas whiskeys that you can't get in other parts of the world.
I want to get back to this specific whiskey in just
I
a
wanna-
second. No, but I wanted to ask you, because you brought this up. The way that I hear you talking about these other brands, these other Texas whiskeys, really is a part of what I really love about this. We see this in the cigar industry as well. There's a certain spirit of, even though everybody's competitors for the consumer's purchase, right? There's a certain sense of people being very supportive of each other.
Camaraderie.
And camaraderie, yeah. Is that real? Like, you can say, you're only on, nobody listens to the show anyway. You can say whatever you want.
There is a brotherhood or sisterhood, like, together, again, because there are some really wonderful women in the industry as well that are making crazy awesome whiskeys here in Texas. But there's this camaraderie that exists here that if you talk to Kentucky guys, it exists as well. Not among their marketing departments as much, but among the people
I can see that, yeah.
that actually make
That make
product.
it, yeah.
Again, in Kentucky, you can say, like, when Heaven Hill had their big fire in the 90s, the first person on the phone was, I think it was Jimmy Russell, or it was one of those big guys calling them, being like, hey, what do you need? We're here to support you. Whatever you need, we'll send over to you.
Wow.
We'll take care of you. And to me, that very much exists here. Like, Balcones and Garrison took us in early on and were like, hey, come down, hang out. I mean, Dan, like, again, one of the very first Texas whiskey experiences was visiting Dan Garrison and him
Who is
going,
awesome, by the
Yeah,
way.
Yes.
he is a trip. Again, there is no bigger personality in Texas whiskey than Dan Garrison.
Yeah.
And again, taking you in, going, like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how we're doing it. This is what we see. This is why we love our whiskey the way it is. And again, in Balcones, again, we did some intern stuff there really early on, right even before they won, their big single malt award back in the day. That really kind of launched them. Really taught, like, how do you handle this environment? How do you deal with what's going on in this Texas, heat and intensity of the environment that we live in? And it's like they bring you in, and it's a family. I mean, when we get together, like we hang out. Like Jared Hempstead, who's the head guy over at Balcones right now, is a very good friend that I could text or call any day, be like, hey, man, when you got your port cast, what did you see with this, or what
Right.
and
See,
it's
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely,
that kind
yeah.
of camaraderie, and I started to use the word collaboration. I don't know if that's the right word, but
there's collaborative whiskeys. There are.
But the ability for that to be okay, for him to respond to you on that, or for you to respond in a similar way to somebody else.
I want to back up to the root of what we're talking about here for a second. The fact that everyone in the industry is supportive, like in your position, everyone is super supportive, like especially within Texas, because we have the Texas Pride thing, and then you get outside of that and you go speak to, and you talked about excluding the ad factory, so to speak.
Right.
But everyone's so supportive, and that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. I think that we've been subjected to so much slander propaganda in so many ways, in so many different industries, that we just expect that now.
I think you're right.
And I think
you're right.
that's just doesn't exist in this community.
And the reality is that the better, I correct me if you don't think this is right, the better Balcones does, the better it is for you guys.
100%.
Like, it's something
Balcones is from Texas. These guys are from Texas. I should try this.
I should try this, right. I've
Yes.
already had one good whiskey I really liked from Texas. Let me try these
Not
guys.
only that, but the guys from Balcones hang out with the guys from Ironroot, who hang out with the guys from Garrison's, who hang out with the guys from Whitmire's, who hang out with the guys. And it just goes down. Like, you should try all these. And I think that is, like, I've seen after some of the whiskey events and stuff, an after party where everyone just shows up and hangs out. Everyone.
Right.
Bring a
And it
bottle and
doesn't
hang
matter
out.
if you're from a big, huge conglomerate or if you're independent. Everyone brings a bottle and hangs
Love
out.
that.
And it's absolutely amazing to watch everyone talk.
Absolutely
It's
love
been
that.
phenomenal. I mean, like, we've got whiskeys at the distillery that Jared and Zach, who passed away just not too long ago, they came up and distilled with us one night. And so we have barrels that they came up and distilled with us. I've got a barrel of whiskey at the distillery that is actually literally a blend of our bourbon and Whitmeyer's single malt, because Travis and my brother and myself,
single malt's so good.
it's so good. And again, the fact that I was able to secure some of that from him to do. We have literally a blend of essentially what's a Promethean barrel and his single malt together,
Nice.
which is just glorious. It's been aging, and again, we blended it when I think the single malt was 9 months old whenever we blended it, and it's been aging since Harvey, because that's when we did it. And so it's significantly older than even the single malt that he released and the whiskey that we typically release. And that will come out at some point as it'll be a charity barrel that we do for something down here in Houston. So we've got that up at the distillery. We've got plans that we've got some projects going on that are blends of different Texas whiskeys with Balcones and us, and the Texas Whiskey Festival blend that happens every year. There's a great one coming out that is Lone Elm and Treaty Oak, and who's the third one? Oh my goodness,
I'm already
my brain,
loving this.
my brain's killing me on who the third one is. Ranger Creek out of San Antonio is doing that one.
Yep.
So they're doing this year's. Last year was Balcones, us, and Andalusia. And there's so much just collaboration going on in the industry that the Crowded Barrel guys are helping put on. Cool stuff happening at Ben Milam out there as well. Just really fun things. Again, people coming in, and it's just, again, we all get together and we play around because that's what's fun in this industry.
That's what's fun about doing it, right? That's why we all got into this in the first place. Robert, before we get, we definitely went down a rabbit hole there.
Sorry.
And no, it's good, but we haven't really commented on the Harbinger. And Ian, I know your glass is already empty, so you have done some. He passes it.
Yeah, so you got to go the other direction.
Oh wait, I have the bottle.
But you've done some research, sir. So speak to us.
All right. Do you remember earlier when I tasted the whiskey that I said was so good I wanted to rub it on my nipples,
Yes,
even though my nipples weren't sensitive?
Was that the Promethean, I believe?
Well, this one I definitely want to rub on my.
Oh wow! Wow. Well, Ian, this is the whiskey that won the award. Do you?
So here's what I
back
think.
that up. What's your thinking?
This is so good. So the last whiskey that we tried,
the Promethean,
the Promethean was very maple, and a bunch of other stuff. This.
And a bunch of other stuff. I love that.
Yeah, well, you go back and listen to this.
That's right. We've already been there.
You've already heard me. I pontificated on it at great length. This right here, it has a little bit of the maple syrup still up front, like that has.
But
it's there, but it also has a huge chocolate profile. It has this. If the previous one was the creme brulee, this is the chocolate mousse. So this is so silky and so smooth and so delicious. Yet, the weirdest thing about everything I just said, it also has a very present alcohol bite to it, a very present heat to it, and not in any bad or uncomfortable way. It's not like smooth. It's like
like. Oh, don't worry, we'll get to that one. Here a little bit.
Like the guy on the Jägermeister bottle.
Yeah. We're getting up there.
No, but it's interesting because this lets you know you are drinking whiskey.
Well,
you are drinking alcohol right off the bat. But it's so incredibly silky smooth. All the flavors. This also brings in a lot of. There's the mineral water.
Well, yes.
From the beginning of the show, like from the first whiskey we tried, the mineral water is still there. It's like the water has been the one grounding thing in all of it.
Well,
you still get that minerality.
I was just about to say that all of those flavors that you described, I would say put those into like the taste, but add the minerality of a single malt Scotch.
I also want to add a little bit of Belgian waffle, kind of like it literally has a little bit
I can't let you do that.
Breadiness.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
It literally has a little bit of breadiness, and almost like that perfect breadiness with just a dash of that powdered sugar on top, kind of like super silky. This is This is as good as I've ever had. This is amazing.
Have you ever been to New Orleans and been out like
I've been there.
really like late at night, and you maybe had a little too much to drink the night before, and you get up the next day and you go have beignets?
Oh yeah.
I'm tasting a little of that.
Yeah. Okay. So you're getting what I'm
powdered
saying.
sugar.
Yes, a little of that powdered sugar sweetness.
See, I love it
And
when
there's
other
nothing-
people say it because I'm not just making this up.
There's
apparently.
nothing better though than that, and it's not like I'm not even gonna sorry Michael Sweet Striper fans, it's not good for you, those beignets.
Which means you should never eat them.
And I
or
should never
something.
post a picture of myself on Instagram having one because that would be a sin.
It'd be terrible.
Yeah.
I will, however, ask for a little more of this. This is good. Actually, no,
It's so good.
I would ask for more, but I think we have one more to sample.
We got one more for this segment, and I got one for extra hours here.
Okay, all right. So one more for this segment and one for the bonus segment.
Hold on.
I love that we just cracked open something new.
So
I have to save this.
So the last two we're going to do, so you've had Harbinger, which is the blend of that purple corn, Bloody Butcher, the little bit of Flint, a little bit of rye. The last two are going to feature corn's mash bills individually. So this one is actually our corn whiskey, the Hubris, that's won Best in the World a number of times now from a bunch of different organizations.
As corn whiskey.
As corn whiskey. So it's a used barrel versus a brand new barrel. This one, next one's 100% corn, but this is the purple corn that you're going to get a taste. And the very last one you're going to taste is the Bloody Butcher corn by itself. So you're going to get to see
I love
them
this called
isolated.
Bloody Butcher.
Oh yeah,
by
I
the
love
way.
the name just
I'm
right
sure
off the
that
bat.
it doesn't translate quite as hardcore as it sounds, but it's pretty awesome.
It's, I mean, when you see it, it looks like blood. Like
Does
it's
it really?
dark red.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're gonna try this one. This will be the last one.
So it's
for
not
the,
just like we need to make this corn sound cool.
yeah, right.
Right.
This will be the last one for the show itself, and then we'll do a little bonus segment at the after the end of the show, where we try the Bloody Butcher.
Okay, so
corn.
this one you can smell the uptake immediately in alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
And what's the ABV on this? Or
This
what's
is
the proof?
117.8.
Wow.
Yeah, that comes across right on the nose pretty instantly.
Don't worry, the last one's 129.
This is now getting into the territory where Chris Hart would like it. Our buddy Chris Hart, who I call Chris Overproof Hart.
Chris Overproof Heart.
Who I don't know if he's still with us. He was with us earlier in the show, but
Oh, this has just on the nose, this has a very spicy, like baking spice kind of thing going on.
well, you're right about that. Very spicy on the first sip.
Clove, cinnamon.
Yeah. It's a very kind of dark, spicy.
So I have a question for you while we're trying this and
Look,
loving
I
it.
was young. I needed the money.
Yeah, all right. Good to know. So obviously you've got all of these at your disposal when you're ready to go drink. So it's a Thursday night and you're gonna like have a little whiskey. What would you go to drink? Like, would there ever be a time where you would drink one of the lower proof, one of the more like straightforward things, as opposed to going?
What's your go-to?
Here? Yeah, what's your go-to?
It depends on kind of what mood I'm in and what's going on. When it's colder outside, I generally trend towards higher proof. Again, for me, I'm going to trend towards the 115 Harbinger especially during the winter, when it's like, if it's snowing up in North Texas or it's something that's really, this is the one I go to because the clove, the cinnamon reminds me, it's all those baking spices I love in pies.
Right. Now you're starting to think about the holidays and all of that.
That's when I go to the hubris. When I'm wanting something that's a little bit lighter, we start trending toward a little bit warmer months. Promethean is typically where I'm going to go. I will generally venture between the three is kind of where I'm going to roll between.
Okay.
The 90 proof, basically July and August is when I'm hitting the light proof. I'll do there's something called a ranch water. It's simply done with mezcal or tequila, which is that Topo Chico, maybe some lime.
Nice.
Topo Chico.
Oh yeah. A little bit of, again, if you're at a pool, a little bit of whiskey.
That's Texas Perrier right there.
Yeah, it is, 100%. If you're hanging out at a pool, like that's the way to go. It's something you can just keep drinking and roll, and that's when I'm going to jump on the lower proof stuff. But generally when I'm drinking whiskey, it's going to be the 100 to 100 and plus strength stuff. But
I find I'm generally a fan of a more overproof whiskey if I'm going to grab something.
I figure you are. Now, do you have, first of all, what's your take on this? And second, what's your favorite of what you've tasted today?
This right here, first off, as you get it close to the nose, you can instantly, immediately tell the proof difference. Like, this smells big proof. Like, right on the nose. It actually is almost tingling into the nose. It's almost too much. The flavor of it, though, what's interesting is the first third of the palate, doesn't get any of that. It's just all sweet corn and then delicious sweet.
And then here it comes.
And then the middle of the palate gets a little of the more mashy, malty kind of thing going on. And then the finish on this, when you swallow, and it's interesting because the swallow and the aftertaste are so different. And just to remind me on this, okay, so swallow has a hint of malt, like malty chocolate, not chocolate like milk chocolate. We're not talking about Milky Way. We're talking about like malt, like malted milk balls kind of malt.
Exactly.
And then it goes away and comes back with this whiskey hug that wraps around you like a 30-foot python.
There's a real whiskey hug going on here.
This is a very serious, this is a very big whiskey.
Yes,
and
it
lets you know on the nose and on the, so it's bookended by this huge, alcohol hug. It gets you on the nose at the beginning and it gets you on the heat at the very end. And it's not in an unpleasant way. So I don't want anyone to think it's and again, we're not talking about smooth. We're talking about wow, that's a big warmth coming up. So I can see why you go to this in the winter because holy crap, you don't even need to start your fire. You're I'll take a couple sips of this. I'm not even lighting the chimney tonight.
Are you,
barbecuing at 2 a.m. to start it out for dinner? This is what we go to. This is the whiskey we go to.
That's exactly right.
Ian, is this your favorite so far?
No.
No?
No. My favorite so far is definitely Promethean.
Promethean?
That is so good.
Yeah.
That's so amazing and in so many ways.
Nice.
Second favorite after that would probably be the
115.
Yeah, the 115 that we had a minute ago, yes.
All right. Well, there's so much good. There's so much to like. One more question before we wrap up the show proper, and then we're going to do a little bonus segment where we taste this this final one. And this is this 129.8 proof? Is that what you said?
It is. It is indeed 129.08
Oh my God.
proof.
Did you name it Shillelagh or?
It's going to smack you around a little bit. Get ready. Get ready.
All right. So we'll get to that in our bonus segment. Before we do that, I just wanted to ask you about the name of the company, Ironroot Republic. Is there a special meaning to that?
There is. So when we were talking about earlier the grape roots that help save the French wine industry and European wine production, they referred to it over there as the iron grape roots from Texas. And so for us, that's why we took on that name. It's that heritage that I love that technique that we use to make all their spirits. But it's an homage to the city we're in. It's that iron roots from Texas that help make sure that everyone can keep drinking wine.
I love that your logo, by the way, has the I, the R, and the star.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It's good stuff. Well, I want to say, as we wrap up the primary portion of the show, I want to say thank you very much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was long overdue, and we will look forward to having you on again sooner. We won't wait as long this time. And know that you are now invited to show number 200.
Yeah.
So.
I'll be down here for it. Don't you worry.
That'll be perfect.
Sweet.
Ian, thank you for everything to our producer, Adam on the Wheels of Steel, who I think we owe much whiskey to at this point.
He is
indeed. We'll be back with you next week for show number. Oh wait, is next week number 175?
175. Halfway to 200.
Is that a thing?
Halfway to 200.
I don't know. We'll be back and we'll talk about it then. Bonus segment coming up where we'll be trying some 37 gazillion proof whiskey.
This is also the segment where we give our guest the sound machine.
Oh, yeah, that's right. In the final segment, the guests get the sound machine, so this should be fun. Have a great week, everyone, and cheers.
The pressure is real.
Cheers, baby.
Cheers.
Try to use that for good, not for evil.
It's only for evil.